analogy I use a lot too, I've used this recently several times, is people have been doing very reactive data analysis for 20, 25 years, right? They have all this data they've been collecting. Hey, something broke, let's go look at our data and see what it tells us, right? And that's kind of the analysis has been done for a long time. Now all of a sudden you want to make the leap and say, I want to go Automagic, right? I want to use machine learning and I want it to tell me all those things. And there's this part in the middle that we seem to be operating in that I think's, overlooked, and that's doing, better first principle analysis and doing better, just basic analytics, business intelligence, using Tableau and Power BI and some of those kind of tools, because you can find an awful lot of stuff that is awfully valuable.
Yep.
And I tell people, this is the low-hanging fruit, or the fruit that's on the ground rotting that you can't see, or that's right here in your low-hanging fruit zone, because you're focused on that really big sweet fruit up there that you can't reach, right? And meanwhile, you have as much or more value sitting right here, either rotting or right here ready to be picked. And the analogy I use is that's like someone who, I'm not a musician, but this is the way I would think about it, is you've been playing 3 chords for 20 years, right? And you can play pretty much every song ever written, right? Because you know those 3 chords. I'm kidding. So, but then all of a sudden, you hear Eddie Van Halen's Eruption. You're like, I want to play that. You can't get there from here, right? Your finger dexterity can't do it. You don't know all those scales. You don't know how he put all that together, right? So there's practice and there's techniques that you have to learn in between to let you get to Eruption. So I think of it this way. You have reactive data collection as the 3 chords. Okay, machine learning full Automagic is Eruption. And there's a whole bunch in between that you got to go through, right? And so what we typically have been counseling our customers on is, hey, let's go do the business intelligence work. Let's do the basic analytics, right? It's going to tell us where there's some gaps. There's going to be some things there are problems we just can't figure out. We can't solve. Okay, that's when we bring this other stuff in. And let's do it. Let's dabble with it. Let's see what it can tell us. Let's be very specific and focused. We're going to learn where we have gaps in our data, where we don't have enough sensor data, so we add more sensors. We're going to have places where the data quality stinks, right? We're going to have places where we have to do feature engineering, right? But if we're doing very specific targeted projects on that, then all of a sudden we're not spending millions of dollars to get no answer, right? And we can keep it very, in a box, right? Here's the specific thing we're trying to do, and then we don't let it get out of hand. So we're going to all learn from that, right? And we've done that with a couple customers now where, we've done enough. We're like, okay, now we know what we didn't know before.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, I think another thing that I was thinking about when you said that is, people working through things with first principles and learning that skill first. I think that's something that a lot of people overlook, because there are a lot of companies that are, okay, we've invested now in a machine learning tool. Now we need to throw it at every problem. And I think that's as common as anything really, is people are looking at a 2 variable problem and throwing it at machine learning. Well, you could figure that out with some Power BI or Tableau or PyVision even, or analytics, right? So it's people that have a lot of machine learning success stories, they're like, wow, we really found this cool correlation, but it's something that you could have found with first principles, I think. And
we saw one that was at PyWorld recently. 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's an example I was thinking of in my head for sure. It
was some kind of solar thing, and they presented at a conference we were at, and they were like, oh, we had this great success story with this machine learning tool, which I've been skeptical of, because I think, and I'm sure it's gotten better, but like at the time you could only throw a couple dozen variables at it, right? And sometimes you just don't know. Like you're like, I really need to eliminate. I might need to throw a couple hundred variables at it, or a couple thousand, because I need to eliminate ground. I don't even know, right? I don't even know which 2 dozen to pick. But they had thrown like 5 maybe at it.
Yeah, or less.
Yeah, or less.
Yeah.
And they're like, wow, it was so fast to tell us what our problem was. I'm like, yeah, I could have done that with Power BI in way less time.
Yeah, I think another example that I think of is like a lot of people do pump failure analysis, which there are a few different ways that pumps fail, right? And it's if you have vibration, you're doing really well. But a lot of times you have a flow, your input into the motor, and you've got pressure sensors if you're lucky, right?
Maybe.
And so there are different ways, like you can use those couple of things, even just one of those variables, and figure out pretty close to how your motor's doing or your pump is doing, right? And so I think a lot of people use those type of, I would consider low-hanging fruit examples in machine learning, where you could have used the first principles.